Okay, morning, Solomon. Sure, the masked man. Okay, I see Solomon's driving and serious this morning, so welcome everybody. And Lee, you're going to have to kick us off because, as I say, I've lost touch with reality at the moment. So go for it.
That's why, as you said it, I realized I didn't write the mail yesterday, so it's my responsibility. So teamwork let us down. Sorry about that. So let me launch in. So yesterday we were talking about, can you put yourself on a totem pole? Is there a hierarchy, and are you judging yourself or placing yourself somewhere on that totem pole? And it just led me to thinking about this idea that as human beings, we have built in us a sense of wanting to go up, and we've got many expressions. I don't know, in English we would call it, we would say, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, or pull up your socks, or and so there's this feeling of wanting to go up, and what does that actually mean for us? And I interpreted that in terms of not just wanting to get ahead from a sense of ambition, although I think that's important that we have that ambition. What does it mean to fly? If we really escape from the confines of I have to fit into a structure that tells me where I am in the pecking order, rather than that, how can I literally free myself from that, but at the same time feel like I'm lifted up? So that was where the question came from. And I've got a couple of stories that I wanted to throw in to illustrate how that I've experienced up, or that feeling of flying in my life. The one is a work story relating to wisdoms. It was the early days of wanting to, of taking wisdoms into the corporate environment. I was given the chance to open up a program that was run by Anglo American for their top talent from around the world. And so it was a 3-week program that was held over a 6-month period. And I was given the afternoon slot on the first day, and then I was going to meet back with the same group in the 3rd week to see what they had implemented. And it was a simple program that we called the Difference Maker, that really is about principles to make a difference in your life and the lives of others. It's a very storytelling, conversational, thinking process. And so I'm facing 60 highly talented engineers, accountants, everybody from around the world, from Canada, Brazil, UK, South Africa, Namibia, and so on. And a bank of people at the back of the classroom, kind of looking down their beady eyes at me. This isn't very intellectual. It was held by Gibbs, so they have a standard. And they came up to me afterwards and said, that was a bit simple, basically. They were trying to be very polite, but basically they were. But in the 3rd week, I had sent them some information that they kept thinking about, and then they had to report back what they had applied of the principles that we'd spoken about. And the stories were mind-boggling, just life-changing for some of these people. Literally, they had investigated themselves, they'd listened to feedback, they had put in different strategies of how they could come across to other people. They'd started volunteer programs, newsletters for their departments, mentoring of other people in the organization. And so it was just, that was a moment where it felt to me like the right material, the right people, my experience in facilitation, the process, all fell together in a moment that made a real difference in people's lives. And it just was this combination of incredible threads that just created something really beautiful. And then the other story I want to tell is literally flying. Ever since I was a little girl, I didn't dream of jumping out of an airplane. That seemed fairly stupid to me. But I dreamt of being in a hot air balloon, of being lifted up and drifting across the landscape with this enormous balloon. It just seemed like the perfect adult playground, watching something down below, and in peace, and it seemed like an impossible dream in many ways, because life happens, and there's always something that's more precious than flying in a hot air balloon, which is the height of, nothing, spending your money and of course I didn't want to go by myself. So on my 50th birthday, my husband treated me to a hot air balloon over the Hartbeespoort Dam, Pilanesberg, Hartbeespoort Dam, Bill Harrops, and it was magical. I can honestly say it was, from beginning to end, everything about it. And if you ever want to speak to somebody who knows how to create an experience from a business point of view, I saw it through those eyes as well. But it lived up. It was only 2 hours, but it was exquisite. And so there again, it was a case of dreaming and then waiting and persevering, and then the magic happened. So I tell you those stories by way of saying there are these moments, and what does it take? What do those moments look like for you, and what does it take to get there?
Great, thanks, Lise. Yeah, some great pictures there and great experiences. So thanks so much for that. So the man who looks like he's at the North Pole at the moment, Mr. Daines, what are your thoughts? Are you with?
What is the question again?
So if you could describe what it means for you to fly, Guy, what would it look like?
Very interesting. I would break it into two. I have to think for a while. How I would fly was in terms of what I'm doing with my life, and in what direction am I flying, and how am I going about it, and just to keep it that simple. And secondly, am I helping other people to fly that I come into contact with? All of us, I suppose, deep down, we like to have a huge impact or a good impact on everyone we come into contact with, but I suppose that's not being practical because of our belief systems, etc., etc. So on the one side, if I'm trying to take myself up to another good place, I'd like to take people along with me, and they don't necessarily have to share the same sort of views, etc. They've just got to want to be a better person and see something impactful and something significant. And hopefully by doing that, they redesign themselves specifically in the new way we find ourselves. Because I think in one way or the other, we all have to redesign ourselves, whether it's redesigning how we go about our work, or redesigning our image, or redesigning how we go about developing relationships, etc. And there's been some interesting subjects on it. So yeah, it's two of those together. If I'm doing that and I'm trying to be so good that I'm not ignored, and I'm helping people do that who want to come on the ride, then yeah, thank you.
Great, thanks.
Trevor popped me an email, so, and I couldn't see it on the screen here, so I was a bit caught double-footed, Thank you.
Well, I'm watching all of you very carefully, so you must know I'm looking for the people that are distracted, and I'm going to pick on you.
Anyway, I hope that helps. Now I'm going to have a cigarette, and I will still listen.
That doesn't help. Right, Jasper, let's get across to you.
Right. I was thinking, well, I think what Lee is saying, almost that sense when you feel you're in the zone and life is good. I think what the pattern that presents itself over and over in my life is I find it difficult to think of big, massive jumps. But if I can believe in a small thing that can be doable and achievable, and I can string the small things together as building blocks and make it bigger things, then I can build as big a thing in my mind as I can, and then I can go for it. And I was thinking of, I never saw myself as an athlete, and was so the one story is a marathon, the comrades. But I remember in preparation in the various races, and then the day on the race, one of the things that keep you motivated and go beyond the pain and the discomfort of the body is to pick on someone who's just slightly ahead of you. So you don't try and, finish first, but you just pick on someone just slightly ahead of you. And slowly but surely you gain on that person, and then that feeling of, all right, I passed him or her. And then you repeat the process for the next person. And before you know it, a race of 90 kilometers is over. But it was, in my case, 11 hours later. But that sense of accomplishment, that I hung in there and I finished the race, but I did it with these little building blocks along the way. And then I was never a fast starter, even in business. So when we started to get involved in New Life, the first 9 years was very difficult for me because I didn't really found a plan that I could believe in and that I could believe is achievable and sustainable. And then in the 9th year, I found that plan, and it was a very simple, basic building block of, I call it the 7-step plan. But I became very good at that, and I found it very easy to teach it for people very quickly. And when I started to move into Africa, I would basically have a week there before I come back. And in that week, I had to then transfer the knowledge into people, because for the next month or two, they are then the leaders and they need to know what to do. And my satisfaction out of that came very soon after that. But even as recently as a year ago, when we went on another overseas trip, many of the people that were leaders at that time are still building large businesses, but with that same simple little plan. And our retention rate is, out of this world in terms of this kind of market. So for me, it's about whatever you do is find an achievable little building block, and then find ways to string the building block together. And I must say, this lead on to the last story is our current virtual mall and virtual trade fair. Theoretically, I know it's a winner, but the magnitude and the scope of bringing all these volunteers together and make them believe. And I said to Helen yesterday, I'm so blessed to be surrounded by the likes of Trevor and Ivan and Gavin and now the people that we've met through the chamber, Dawn, and almost seeing other people from outside that never heard of chamber a month or two ago, but coming on board and the excitement building up. And I've just looked on the website. I think a week ago or 2 weeks ago, we had zero or almost zero people exhibiting, and it stands at 84. And it's 84 people who had to take time out and think about what they want to do. So I'm excited about how sometimes there's just an alignment of things. So maybe the word is an alignment of preparation, finding the right people, having a small but achievable plan that's duplicable. So those are the things that gives me that sense of wow.
Great, thanks, Jasper. Yeah, I love the analogy. You know, how do you run a marathon? Well, one step at a time. You know, it's that's the way you do it. You know, you don't run all 90 Ks in one shot. You do it one step at a time. So yeah, I really like that analogy. Super. So Mpulelo, let's come across to you.
Yeah, good morning to everyone again. I guess Jasper will have to help me because I have an opposite problem. I tend to think big thoughts and then have a problem as to how do I break them down into small pieces. And that's where the trouble comes in. Sense of flying. I guess for me, a sense of flying, you have that feeling, or I have that feeling when I am doing what I believe I've been put on earth for. In the past, that feeling came when I did a music concert. I was an unknown artist. I was using a 3,000-seater place or area or singing hall. And just the planning that went into it and the marketing such that we ended up filling it up to the brim. But it wasn't so much the success of it. It was so much that after doing that concert, the amount of people that then came back to me and saying how much they believe their dreams can come through having seen what I was able to do without much resources. And that for me gives me the sense of flying. So for me, it's mostly when what I do has an impact on people. I think actually that's what I'm on earth for. I'm so much about people and how you impact them positively. And in the future, I think that sense will come again when I feel like I'm fulfilling my purpose. And I have this big thing about leadership and management development, both in companies and in the country. It does seem quite big. I am working on it. I have done some work for Anglo, interesting enough, Lee, in that space, and was quite interesting. And they were also just, there's the big word, flabbergasted about what was what was delivered at that moment in time. So I think for me, if I can see young executives flying, doing better, leadership improving in the country, in companies, in families, that for me, I'll feel like I'm flying.
Great, thanks, Mpulelo. Yeah, I really think there's some great goals, some great experiences, and it's what the country needs, isn't it? Lots of good leaders who are really motivated in the right way and taking the country and the businesses forward. So fantastic, thanks for that. Nozipho, let's come across to you.
Thanks. You know, I think we need to have a rule where if somebody wasn't there the day before, they get to sit it out until the end and be the last to comment. Anyway, I think for me to fly is basically to be free of everything that weighs me down. That's how I feel I'm able to fly. When I feel I'm not weighed down, when I feel I'm not struggling with anything at that moment and I'm just free, then at that point I am flying. Where work is concerned, I think for me, I'm in the education space and I love that space. One of the things we do is when there's, when you've attended the graduation ceremonies, there's that part where you then have the procession come into the hall during the graduation and everybody stands and the whole procession then just walks in. I get the pleasure of being a part of the procession whenever there's graduations at either at Menkosa or at Regent Business School. I cannot explain the feeling to you. It's so amazing. Like, you just walk in with all these people in red graduation gowns, but of course mine is black and a few of us also have black. But that feeling, I always feel like I'm flying every time I do that whole procession walk all the way up to the stage. That's the feeling of flying for me. And I'm hoping one day I get to do that for my own institution. Then I'll really, really fly.
Great, fantastic. Thanks, Nozipho. I think you got it the wrong way around. You know, those folk who don't pitch up to the previous day's session should be first up on the next day's session. make sure that you come, so you don't get picked on first. But also, I think the key is, you know, these sessions are designed to make you think. So, you know, maybe that's. We don't want you to sit and listen. We want you to think and participate. So we're going to put you on the spot regardless. Solomon's disappeared on us again. So I was going to go across to him, but he seems to be struggling with his connectivity. So Trevor, it's up to you.
I wonder if I should share a screen. And no, I can't. Hasn't brought it up. All right, I won't share a screen. Okay, so my sense of flying, I think, is like today. So I'm pleased that Jasper actually brought it up, the launch of Virtual Trade Fair. And for me, I've just had a look at how this little venture has come together. And I believe we're actually flying, but something like Indiana Jones in the Temple of Doom, that is run down and looked in a couple of bushes. He found a spare wing here. He found a little fuselage over there. He found a big rubber band, and then he got some balsa wood and stuck a propeller on it. Well, that's how I'm feeling. I'm rewriting the movie, I'm sure. And then he wound up the blooming thing, jumped on it, and it started to take off. And so that's how I like to fly. I don't like to sit on the ground. If we turn around and say, hey, on this particular date, we're actually going to take off, then come heaven or high water in Mpumalelo, we will take off. And that's how this virtual trade fair has got off the ground today. So flying for me doesn't have to be a perfect endeavor. It just has to be on your wish list, as it was with Lee. You set a date and you take off. And don't worry about having things perfect in place. All things will fit together if you actually start working on that particular date. So that's how I like to fly. And by the way, I think I flew, was I in front of you at that, comrades? And were you trying to catch me? Or what was happening? Okay, so I think a lovely topic, Lee. Thank you.
Right, thanks, Trevor. Solomon, you're back with us.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, yeah, had a bit of a bad connection. Lee, the question is very, very easy. By this time, I already know that for me to fly, I don't need to try to be somebody else. I need to focus on my strengths. I need to focus on the things that I don't strive when I do. In other words, everything about me that has got to do with production, it needs to be something that I'm not striving in, because then I know in trying to develop skills or develop myself, I'll be able to reach the goals and be able to really not only see the success at the end of the road, but at the same time, being able to be satisfied in between, not go at the end of the road and say, oh yeah, you know, I've actually done so well here, but this is not me. So that's from an individual place. And then obviously being with others, it has got to do with connection, connecting.
I think Solomon's obviously driving. I think he's lost his connection as he was talking about connections. He became disconnected.
That was quite appropriate.
Are you back with us?
Yeah,
we lost you there.
That's actually how I am happy and able to say I'm connected and I'm able to fly.
Great, fantastic. Thanks, Solomon. Really appreciate that. Well, there we go, folks. You know, Lee started off talking about hot air balloons, and I was a bit worried that we were going to just be a whole lot of hot air and go up in the air, but definitely wasn't the case. So once again, some great insights and some great put today. And there comes Pierre just as we're about to finish off. So Pierre, welcome. But unfortunately, you've hit us right at the end of the session this morning. Are you with us there, Pierre? Hello? No? Okay. Anyway. All right, Lee. So I think back to you just to wrap up and set the tone for Monday, and yeah, then we'll head off.
Yeah, we're going to delay listening to Solomon's story until after the virtual trade fair. I think that's going to give us just a little bit of space, so we can give Solomon the attention. I think that is important around that. So I'd like to pick up on Mpumelelo's point around leadership. We're talking about flying. We talked about totem pole, and we sort of started thinking about it yesterday. Is what are our expectations of leaders? Is it fair to have expectations of them? So what I'd like to do is to maybe frame it in the question of what do we think are the qualities and skills that leaders in South Africa need? So, Mpumelelo, this is probably right in your wheelhouse. So I'm looking forward to your pearls of wisdom. But I think we've all experienced good leaders, bad leaders, and we certainly want this country and I don't want it to be a reflection on current leadership. That's a political discussion, and I really don't think it's worth our time. So we're talking at leadership at all levels, whether it's in the home, whether it's at community level, in companies, and so on. So but I want to make it relevant to our context, which is why I'm placing it in South Africa. So what do leaders need to be able to be and do in order for us to fly here in South Africa?
Great, thanks, Lee. And yeah, I just popped into the chat box very quickly the URL for the virtual trade fair. I'd love it if you folks can pop in. There's going to be talks every hour on the hour from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day for the next 4 days from a variety of different speakers. So if you can pop in at any time, just hop onto the website, go to the auditorium, click on click on one of the speaker links and join the Zoom sessions. We'd love to see you there. So have a great one. Otherwise, fantastic weekend further, and we'll see you all on Monday. Go well.